I don't know. Horror movies just are bad. This is my opinion. Because I like watching horror movies, but not for the reason that I thought I would. See, when I first started watching horror movies, like first time I watched Saw, and the first time I watched Nightmare on Elm Street, before I was like, oh my god, this is gonna be so scary, and it was just cheesy, and it's not. It, it's like I've recently watched Friday the 13th, the very first one, and it was so bad. It was just bad. Objectively, I would I would choose to watch almost any other movie over that because at least Nightmare on Elm Street, I'd watch it again simply because it was funny. Friday the or not Friday the 13th, but Halloween. That's what I'm talking about. It was just bad. There was nothing exciting. The first hour of the movie was too dark to really see anything. The second hour of the movie, or not second hour, I guess it was only like an hour and 40 minutes or whatever, but it was too dark to see anything most of the time. And unnecessary, like, weirdly inappropriate stuff. And most importantly, I didn't care about the characters at all. I don't know any of the characters' names. I wouldn't know Michael Myers' names because they only say Michael once, and you have to read Myers. You, I only know his name because it's such a popular thing. I, I don't really care about horror movies. Aren't scary. Scariest horror movies that I've seen are Jordan Peele's movies because I think it's for two reasons. One, growing up, I was an internet kid, quote unquote, and I have been so desensitized to slasher stuff because that's just always been a part of my life is seeing that. So I'm just sort of desensitized to it. But also, it's just not that scary. Having psychological thriller like in Nope or not Nope. Nope isn't really a psychological thriller, but Us and Get Out. Nope was less of a psychological thriller, but it was still really good. And I think one of the things that made it so good was the Gordy plotline. Spoilers, by the way. Movie's been out for a long time now, so you should have watched it by now. Um, but Gordy attacking the people, being a chimpanzee. One, I'm horrified of monkeys and chimpanzees and gorillas, and so that brought out my. I would like to say only fear. I'm not really afraid of anything else, um, but that that like kind of hit me. But even if not, because that is a real thing that has happened, that was 10 times better. Um, I think some of the best horror movies are horror movies that aren't. I don't think that it should be considered horror movies. I think that movies like Saw are not horror movies, they are ideas. The Purge, I was so excited to watch it. I watched it, and the first one is horrible. I was deterred from watching the second one for over a year after watching the first one because it was so bad. Second one was a lot better, but they're not horror movies, they're action movies, and the first one is garbage. Why? It's yeah. They're not horror. They're not horror. Actor There are three things that I've noticed with all the horror movies that aren't scary is A, one, they were old. Uh, there are three things, like, one of these three things wasn't each of them that made them not scary. One of them was that they were old. Essentially, they were just old movies, so it was scary back then, not at all now. I think that gets a pass for the most part. Two is actors trying to be other actors and trying to be scary when they're just not. I think that was the problem with The Purge. And three is, sorry for the jump cut. I had to go eat dinner. Three, of course, is low budgets. Lots of horror movies have low budgets, and it's painfully obvious. But then when they get bigger budgets for their sequels, they don't know how to use them because they had such a small budget. Like The Purge 1 had like a $90,000 budget or something, blew it all on Ethan Hawke. But then The Purge 2 had over 270,000 or something. It was like 3 times the amount. Yeah. Horror movies just aren't that great. Psychological thrillers are better, and I consider those horror movies more than I think the others. They're just slashers, is all they are. So yeah, that's my hot take of the day. Goodbye.